Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. My guest this week is Brent Carnduff, founder and CEO of Advisor Rankings. Brent started Advisor Rankings in 2010 after completing his MBA in financial planning. Prior to that, he was an elementary school teacher and high school basketball coach for 15 years. While working on his MBA, Brent was introduced to digital marketing and all of the possibilities that were developing online. He was hooked, especially on SEO. He decided then that he would continue with his degree, but instead of becoming a financial advisor, he was going to become an expert in helping advisors market their practice. This is what he has been working on for the past 10 plus years. So I've been following Brent on LinkedIn for over a year, and we've been in a few webinars together. We've talked, a little bit online. And so it felt like this conversation on the Finance Marketing Podcast was long overdue. I've been looking for someone to come on and talk about SEO for quite some time, especially with all the disruption we're seeing in the search landscape. So when I realized that Brent has been doing this for over 15 years, I knew he was the perfect person to talk to. It was really fun to hear him talk about how dramatically the SEO game has changed over the past 15 years. We talk about why what worked for advisor websites in 2010 simply won't cut it today, how major media companies like NerdWallet and Bankrate have made ranking exponentially more difficult, and why advisors who have found their niche have a really significant advantage in today's competitive landscape. But what makes this episode particularly timely is our deep dive into how AI is fundamentally reshaping search engine optimization. Brent explains the difference between traditional SEO and what's now being called AEO and GEO, and why advisors need to understand all three if they want to be found by their ideal clients in this new AI-driven search world. We also get into the nitty-gritty of using AI tools for content creation, including why no matter what, you still need to be the human in the loop, even when you're leveraging these powerful technologies. So if you've been wondering whether your current SEO strategy is still relevant, or if you're trying to figure out how to adapt your content marketing for AI search engines, this episode will give you the clarity and direction you need to move forward with confidence, even as we are all figuring this out together. So without further ado, let's dive in. Brent, thank you so much for joining me today on the Finance Marketing Podcast. I am just delighted to have finally made the connection with you. I've been following you on LinkedIn for a long time. How are you doing today?
Doing really well, thanks, Hillary, and thanks for inviting me. I've been following you on LinkedIn as well, and so it's nice to finally meet you.
And I think that this conversation on the Finance Marketing Podcast is long overdue. I have been, to be perfectly truthful with you, I have been looking for someone to come on and talk about SEO for over a year at this point, with all of the changes that we're seeing, the disruption to the search landscape and all of these things. And it's actually a little bit embarrassing from my end that I didn't immediately reach out to you and say, oh, Brent is the perfect person to talk about. So I'm just so glad that we're finally having this conversation.
Yes, me as well. And it's very timely, right? And a year ago, it would have been a completely different conversation and probably one that would need to be updated today anyway. Things are changing so fast.
I can already see that we're probably going to have to do some recordings like this every 6 months or so.
Sure. Sounds good.
You're going to be a regular.
And the way it's changing, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be a regular recurring guest on the podcast. So let's get into it. So tell us a little bit, I guess, before we get into all of the changes and what you're seeing, give us a little bit of background info on you and how you help advisors.
Sure. So I was a elementary school teacher and a girls' high school basketball coach in the Sun Valley area of Idaho for 15 years, and started looking back in mid 2000s, started looking at financial planning for my own family, right? Like saving college funds for the kids and retirement and all that stuff. And I was also looking for a change. I had stopped coaching as of 2007 and was looking for something and decided I was going to become a financial advisor. So I went back to school, got my MBA in financial planning, taken all the CFP courses, never took the exam. But while I was going to school, a friend of mine got me involved in a little side retail kind of site as a hobby. I knew nothing about what was going on online, but he said he built websites. And so he built the website and said, I would need to do some reading, learn about social media, learn about SEO, pay-per-click advertising, all that stuff. And it was kind of really, at least to my knowledge, kind of when things were really happening. Gary Vee had just released Crush It, his first book, and there was a few other it all sounded really exciting to me. So I decided, rather than become a financial advisor, that I wanted to go into marketing, particularly SEO. And financial advisors seemed like a natural direction because I had an education in it. I already had connection with people from school, and I was really interested in it. So I got my first client in 2010, I believe, and or 2009 actually, left my teaching job in 2010, and have been doing this mostly full-time since then. I went in-house for 2 years to a commercial real estate investment fund here in Boise, but decided that I preferred working on my own.
Wow, Brent, we have so much similarity. Did you know that I'm also a former teacher?
No, what did you teach?
I taught college writing, so I taught the
Oh,
freshman English courses. And
very
then,
nice.
yeah, and then I also was kind of looking for a change and fell into this world of advisor
Yeah,
marketing, which has been really fun.
very
So
good. Well,
that's
good for you.
fantastic. I have to
Yeah.
ask you a quick follow-up question there. Do you feel like your teaching experience has influenced the way that you think about marketing or any of your marketing philosophies or anything like that, or not so much?
I think in my personal marketing, it certainly does. And
Mm.
I guess with what I would recommend clients, like I'm very much about education.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy learning new stuff. I think, a lot of content, people are looking for information and stuff. So I really approach it from an educational prospect
Mm.
or educational view. And I think it's true. Like I'm not a salesman. I'm not really, I don't want to be a salesman.
Right.
I want to educate and the people that find that they're interested or need that service or need some help will come to me, but they'll also find the advisor that's doing that.
I love that. Okay, so back to SEO. You said you got your first client in 2009. So you've been in this for a little while.
Yes, seen a lot of changes.
Yeah. Can you walk us through some of the biggest changes that you've seen? And also, as a secondary question to that, through the changes that you've seen over the past 15 plus years, is there one that stands out as kind of the biggest disruptor?
Yes. So yeah, happy to go back. So the world obviously has really changed a lot since then. When I first started talking to advisors, many of the advisors, Michael was just getting started. And so I followed him early on and got to know him. But most advisors were saying, my clients aren't online. They'll never be online.
Mm.
My clients aren't on Facebook. They'll never be on Facebook. And in fact, most couldn't be on LinkedIn. There was actually a separate LinkedIn started. What was it? LinkedFA
Mm.
started as a LinkedIn for financial advisors because most didn't feel that compliance and compliance wouldn't allow them to be on. And so it was a compliant LinkedIn that it was only around for maybe a year, but it was a really different world than it is now. So a lot of the changes, there's been major changes in SEO. It was really easy to rank advisors in 2010, right? Because very few were doing it. And so as we got more guidance and local became a little bit more of a distinct part of SEO, that was really easy. We used to do project based because we could go in, set up the local stuff and go out and they'd rank for a while. Now we go back and see that obviously it didn't hold unless they really did a lot of work on their own, and project based is no longer possible. It's become one of the changes, hugely competitive, partly because of all the media companies that write financial content, right? NerdWallet, Investopedia, CNBC, on and on and on. Partly because of, the big personal finance blogs. There's a lot of national advisory firms, right, that have a lot of resources. And so and a little bit before the pandemic, we saw it happen, but particularly during the pandemic, a lot of advisors moved online that weren't online to start producing content. So the content part of SEO, which is super important, has become more and more challenging over the years in a lot of ways. I think the biggest change well, I don't know. From search perspective, Google got very good at, or got much better at making sure that there weren't as many shortcuts,
Mm,
right? That you had to actually be writing good quality content,
mm,
unique content, not boilerplate. And then the SEC made changes, like first allowing, yes, you can use your Google business profile. You can't control those reviews, so it's okay. I think that was in 2016.
mm,
Then the new marketing rule in 2022 came out. Reviews are a huge aspect now for advisors. The whole online world for advisors has opened up so much in the last 15 years.
mm,
And then, of course, right now, the changes we're going on with AI are just incredible, and probably the biggest transition from a straight SEO perspective
mm.
that that I've seen, or that we will see, and it's still changing regularly, right? We're still learning more. It's getting better or different, and there'll be, I think, eventually a coalescing of the industry, probably a couple. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of companies supplying analytics. There's a lot of AI search platforms. And I think that'll eventually narrow a little bit.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, this is really fascinating. And to your point, with everything that's happening with AI right now, and that being kind of the biggest disruptor, and it's changing so fast, I do feel like Google would come out with an algorithm update and everybody in SEO would kind of scramble for a little while. And then they would say, like, oh, you know what? This actually is a good thing. So
Right.
we can adapt to this. It does feel a little bit different with AI. It's just changing so much faster. There's just so much unknown. Do you think that the SEO industry and how advisors specifically do SEO, do you think that there are going to be reverberations for years and years to come with all of these quick changes?
I think there will certainly be changes, and part of, like, of all the changes that Google went through to make search better. Typically, like really from 2010 till now, search optimization had the basics haven't changed a lot,
Right.
right? Google's gotten better and required higher standards, but as long as you were following the basic guidelines and rules, you didn't have to make that many adjustments. You did see adjustments in rankings and stuff like that you could, emphasize better quality links or longer articles or something like that.
Hmm.
Today, with AI, traditional search is really important still. I don't know if it always will be, but right now, those that have been optimized for SEO have an advantage over people that haven't,
Hmm.
unless those people are otherwise internet famous. And so I don't know. Right now, a traditional SEO carries on some influence to AI. There are additional things that you need to do from an AI ranking perspective or visibility perspective. And certainly I think those are going to become more and more important in the future as the marketplace becomes more competitive. More
Hmm.
people are starting to rank for that, right?
Hmm.
So I think it's just going to be, right now we are doing both, we're continuing with traditional SEO while adding components for AI search optimization. And I only see that there's always, I think, going to be some traditional SEO involved, but more and more AI optimization will become the rule, I think.
I think so too. And I remember seeing a post on LinkedIn maybe 6 or 7 months ago. I think it was at the beginning of the year. And I remember it just kind of it sparked, I think, this like existential crisis in me a little bit that was
Yeah.
like, oh no, is what I do totally obsolete now? Because I help advisors with their content from an SEO perspective. I don't get into the majority of the back end SEO stuff, but from a content perspective, I do help with that. And I saw this post on LinkedIn that somebody made that now I think is total bogus, but he said, anyone who's still trying to optimize for keywords with SEO content is going to get left behind. Like you don't need to optimize for keywords anymore. That's, you don't need to do that. And I just totally disagree with that now. And I'm wondering what your take on that is.
Yeah, certainly keywords. The search engines, whether they're AI or traditional, still need to understand there's still three components that have been true of traditional SEO. they need to know what you're about.
Mm-hmm.
That's where keywords come in, right? They need to measure your authority in however they do that, to compare you to other answers or other advisors so they know who to show in the search. And then they need to make sure that you're offering a good user experience. Like, so that one's kind of a different one, is kind of a takeaway. If they're recommending you and people are displaying they're not having a good user experience, then you'll be removed. But I think keywords, now content, your search pages, particularly local, like they're still searching for financial advisors, retirement planning, investment management, stuff like that. In more national reaching content is still going to be keyword based, and then it's topical around a keyword, right? Like, I don't think you have to worry quite so much about an exact match keyword.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say stuffing, because I don't think our agency's stuffed, and it's definitely, but making sure that it's mentioned so many times or whatever. I think AI is going to be able to make more nuanced understanding of that.
Right.
But you still have to have a topic and a theme or a central theme that you're writing around, whether it's 401k conversions or, financial planning for doctors or retirement planning for Boise. You still have to have a theme,
Right.
Which is going to be keyword based.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, going back a little further, I'd really like to pick your brain around this, because I came on the scene around 2020. So I haven't seen as many changes as you have. And so I'm curious, you said in 2009, 2010, those early 2010s, it was really easy to help an advisor rank. And then all the big media companies came on the scene. And how are you going to compete with the likes of NerdWallet, Bankrate, and what have you, the balance? How did you adjust and help your clients make headway when that started to happen?
Yeah, it became really challenging in the last few years for content, particularly to content subjects that can rank, right? Because there's only, on Google's homepage, there's about 10 positions, right, on a organic search, and so many of those are filled with those major high authority sites. And so we had to become a couple ways. One, I think local SEO was something that advisors overlooked for a long time, took for granted. They said, well, yeah, I want to be found locally, but I really want to be across the country. And so they didn't emphasize local search. So local search became more of a focus. And I think a lot of advisors have seen the value in that now, especially as it's become more and more competitive across the country. So local is one way. If we could help them, if not niche down, or niche down, as we say in Canada, at least market to a niche somewhat, right? That became an easier target, right? So if we were writing for the issues that financial issues doctors or dentists or chiropractors or lawyers or whatever addressed, there was less competition, less likely to have major media companies writing that content, more room for an advisor to rank. And then finally, we would try to go broad topic, and we would do traditional search using SEMrush and Ahrefs and stuff like that, and try to find volume keywords with good search volume that would speak to the audience, the advisor's audience, and the services he or she offered. However, we couldn't stop there. That used to be what search, right? Like find the SEMrush or something would say it's not that difficult. We would then go in and actually do that search. And look to see what was in the search results page, on the search results page. Compare, we have tools that'll show kind of a relative authority, how Google would measure authority of a site. Compare the company, looks first to see if any independent financial advisors are ranking in there, or if Google's decided that they're not the answer for that question or search. Then we would compare the advisor we're working with, their assumed or presumed authority, with what was there. So if all the authority, usually authority is measured out of 100. If all the authorities were 50 or above and our client was 23, we would say, okay, we're probably not going to rank there. But if we could find some in the 20s, maybe low 30s, we'd think, okay, we have a chance. We just now need to do a better job, like create a better piece. There's the thing in SEO for us SEO nerds. There's some SEO influencers or people you follow. And Brian Dean is one for, he used to run a site, Backlinko, and I think SEMrush bought them out a couple years ago. But he came up with the skyscraper. What was it? Skyscraper framework, I guess. And the idea is when you're creating content, just like if you're building a skyscraper, everybody wants to build the tallest one. So you build one and the next company's got to be bigger. It's the same thing with content. Look to see what's there and make it better, right? And unfortunately with Google, that part of that is length. And so we were doing really long content in areas, we'd kind of reversed engineer to see what we need to do to rank, and made sure that we were able to rank in those spots. So it really came a long way. Like I remember mid 2000s, a lot of advisors and it even shake my head then a little bit, but just write good content. Just write good content.
Yeah.
Years ago, you could do that, right? And it didn't even have to be that great. And it didn't even have to be, people ask, what do I write about? Oh, you're getting your office is being redone. Write that. Get it,
Right.
but it's become a point where your quality's got to, or your content's got to be very high quality. It's got to be very targeted. Now, obviously, that limited the stuff we could write about, our clients could write about.
Right.
And we would just not all content is designed for SEO or is going to be.
Right.
Like there's content that reflect your services that you want people to see that needs to be on your website, even though you're never going to rank for it. Right. Tax loss harvesting. If that's a big part of your strategy and you want to educate your client on it, you should have that on your website. However, from an SEO perspective, we're not going to recommend that because you're not going to rank for that.
Right.
So, you have different purposes for different pieces of content. And that's changing now too.
I love that perspective, Brent, because I think oftentimes when you're thinking about blogs specifically, it does feel very black and white. Like, well, if I'm not going to rank for this, what's even the point of having this content up here? But there is a point to having that content up there. There's lots of different purposes for having content on your website besides just SEO, I think. And I've often recommended to my clients, I don't know if you recommend this as well, for that content that is serving a different purpose than SEO, you need to promote it, right? You need to send it in your email newsletter. You need to talk about it on LinkedIn. You can't just let it sit on your website, especially if it's not something that you're investing, SEO into, and think that anybody's ever going to see it. So you really do have to promote the marketing content as well.
For sure. Yeah. And that content, because you want to get as much, content is an asset, a marketing asset, right? And it takes up resources to create. So you want to make sure you're getting as much out of it as you can.
Right.
If it's not ranking, I kind of simplify marketing to this, that kind of a hub and spoke model. The website's the hub. The whole job of the website is to convert. If you create the most beautiful website in the world and just stick it out on the internet, it will not do anything. It'll stay empty. Nobody will ever find you. So you need spokes drawing traffic, right? Spokes are content, social media, SEO, speaking, podcasting, networking, all of those things, paid advertising, right? All of those spokes bring traffic. Now, when they get to the website's job is to convert. It may be the best conversion is they pick up the phone and call you and say, I've got millions of dollars, please manage it for me. But there's secondary, or it could be tertiary, join my email list so I can connect with you, right? That's a big one. And then it's all about follow through, whether it's the person on the phone or building your list and emailing out to them. The website's done its job. Now you got to convert them to a client, right? And so I think it's, part of what you're talking about, like it's important to have this content on, even if it doesn't, if you promote it, it'll bring some people, but it's part of the conversion process, right? Like they need to know what you do, what you're offering, you need to impress them. And so having that content about a tax loss harvest, if they don't know what that is, or rebalancing your portfolio or whatever it is, maybe the thing that they find that's, this guy knows, or this woman, she knows what she's doing. And so it can be part of the traffic generation, but it also really can help with conversion.
Absolutely. So let's go back to another thing that you said earlier. You said that as these big media giants were coming onto the scene, advisors who had their niche, they had an advantage there, right?
Yeah.
I think that is always been true. And I think that it is becoming even more true as people start to use these AI search engines, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Google, and they're getting AI overviews or whatever it might be, because you can ask for such specific answers. You can say, I'm looking for a financial advisor. I'll use my husband as an example. He's a firefighter. I'm looking for a financial advisor who helps firefighters understand their pensions, right? And so would you agree that when we're talking about AEO, answer engine optimization, also known as GEO, generative engine optimization, I don't think
Mhm.
the industry has decided on a good term yet.
I've got some stuff about that too, but
Please
we'll get to
share. Please share.
that. Yeah. First of all, totally agree. A narrower focus, a niche is going, whether your website is niched or just your topic
Mm-hmm.
is going to become more and more important.
Mm-hmm.
When we're looking at AI search right now, AI is looking for topical authority.
Mm-hmm.
So it wants you not to be a generalist,
Mm-hmm.
but to be an authority, and you have a better chance of being recognized as an authority if you are focused on an area, right? Like somebody like Taylor Schulte or Michael Kitces may be found for general retirement,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're all over the web, and that's another thing that comes with AI search that becomes important. But otherwise, you need to figure out where your area of topical authority is. Now, maybe you generate more than one area, right? Eventually, and I think you can do that. But it could be around a location. It could be your city, generate topical authority as a financial advisor here in Boise. It could be a service that you offer. Maybe your 401k Roth conversion expert kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. You write a lot about that if people are looking for that. It could be your demographic, doctors. We're only working with doctors, and so we're going to write about problems that doctors have. And in fact, it's probably going to be a combination of those.
Mm-hmm.
So we're helping with an advisor. We're helping an agency with an advisor in Austin, and they just had somebody come in from Meta. There's a lot of tech there, and they do work with tech people. And so they had somebody come in from Meta and say, I have this money. I'm worried, or these stock options. I'm worried I'm going to lose my job, and I'll lose all my money, my options. And they had gone on to chat and had that conversation, and called up this advisor, said, I was so relieved to find you. You are exactly who I was looking for, because they had this long conversation that led to it. So now what are they looking for? They're looking for somebody that specializes in tech finance
Mm-hmm.
that was in Austin.
Mm.
So, it needs to be, even like, as you said, narrow and narrower. So it might be a combination of those two. We offer this kind of plan for doctors, or we are, focus on doctors in Minneapolis
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. So the reality of search is there's going to be far fewer visitors coming to your website.
Mm-hmm.
We've hit peak search, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
peak visitor to overall websites. There's going to become fewer and fewer of those. However, the people that come through are going to be more qualified,
Yep.
and they're going to be, once they reach there, they're going to be looking for you
Yep.
to work with you.
Yep.
So it's going to be a different landscape that way.
The word that's coming to mind is triangulate. You kind of have to triangulate like the three things that people are looking for, or three is an example number, but the multiple things that people are looking for, there's going to be fewer of them, but when they find you, they're just going to say, oh my gosh, like you said,
You're it.
I'm so glad I found you. Yes, you
Yeah.
are it. I attended, this was back in January or February. It was kind of a how to adapt your content for AI search engines. And they gave the example of how great as a user when I am looking for a restaurant in a city that I'm visiting. So I'm looking for a restaurant in Nashville that is dog friendly because I have my dog with me. So I want a patio, and I really hope that they serve hot dogs. And so you can search for all of these things. If you were to try to do a traditional Google search, you're going to be sifting through, questions that people have asked, hoping the restaurant has answered them. It's going to take you so long. But if, you can ask that to ChatGPT can search through all of the questions that people have asked and the answers that the restaurants have given and things like that. They can serve you up the one restaurant that you're looking for.
Yes.
And I think that is so true for advisors too. I mean, the example that you just gave, I couldn't even think of a better one. And so having content out there that answers those questions is
Yeah.
going to be so
Yeah.
important.
It will. Like a general restaurant in Nashville, best hot dogs in Nashville,
Yep.
dog friendly restaurants in Nashville, like all
Yeah.
of that stuff could be content for that restaurant, right?
Yes.
And that would lead, hopefully, to them being one of the answers for your query.
So I think the challenge therein lies, what are people searching for that I do and that I can do, and how do I figure that out?
Yeah, that is a challenge indeed. And there's lots of new tools coming on. There's not something simple like a Google Search Console or Google Analytics yet,
Right.
industry wide. There are many companies trying to fill that void. I have been speaking to many of them because we're looking for tools to use and finding some things that work. So there's some different ways. Obviously, keyword research is still part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, if people are searching around 401k, there's volume. There's still going to be volume around 401k.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you get found. So first of all, you can, add your city or state or both to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you do taxes and you're in several different states, you can do specific tax articles for each state, your city where your office is, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we are see, well, so the topics are not going to change that much, but your focus of the topics is going to get more narrow,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to write more content rather than one-off articles. You're going to write 10 articles
Right.
around it, featuring different angles and stuff like that. So the services are still, there was always, what should I write about? Well, what do your clients ask you about?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what do your clients talk about to you? I mean, that's the gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your clients are bringing those up, then people are searching that online, especially now that they can have conversations online and use long tail search terms online, right?
Right.
So that's the gold. Identify those people and write content around their problems,
Mm-hmm.
their issues, the pain points you solve. So the theory of what am I writing about doesn't really change.
Mm-hmm.
You still want to look for volume, but you do have to become, rather than the expert for doctors, it might be doctors in Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or something like that. So more narrowly focused, or mix them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some that are specific to doctors, but also others that indicate that you really are Minneapolis based.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answered your question, but it's still always going to be keyword, ultimately down to the keyword, or as we change it, it'll be topical now rather than a specific keyword.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it almost feels like, so I think back in the day, there was this big, you needed to have quantity, right? I mean, some of the biggest sites, I think like HubSpot comes to mind, they're posting like multiple articles a day, right? Because they're just trying to build up this huge library of content because Google
Right.
liked that, right? Would you say that there has been a shift to quantity isn't as important as quality over the years, and maybe now we're seeing that change again? It's not that we need quantity for quantity's sake, but we need quantity to be able to be recognized in
Yeah,
all the right ways.
that's a really good point. Way back when there was like sites that would spin articles, so you could big kind of, I don't want to say media sites because they weren't mainstream media. They were, but people that wanted to draw clicks and stuff, they would post 3 or 4 articles a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because content. There wasn't as big a thing on quality. Over time, Google got much better at recognizing quality, or at least, yeah, better. I mean, it wasn't always great, but it did get better. And you could slow down. You didn't have to publish every day or every week. You could, publish once every 6 weeks or whatever. If you got to now, there's always been kind of a theory of content velocity. You want to, the more content you had, the better off you'll be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a matter of how quick will you get there. Will you take 3 years to get there, or will you do it in 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
More content equaled opportunity to rank for more keywords, draw more links, all of that stuff. So there's still advantages to producing more, but it wasn't as much of a demand. Now with AI, what's happening? First, I think to your point, like topical authority requires multiple articles,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you do need to get them out. If you're going to do 10 articles on a topic, or 12 articles on a topic, are you going to take a whole year to get that one topic out? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what it allows, and that's fine if that's what you're going. But you'd be much better getting that out faster,
Mm.
right? The other thing, and I just read an article yesterday or maybe even this morning on freshness.
Mm.
AI really wants fresh content.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Google, I think they did a test, and I might have the numbers wrong, but it was something like this, where Google content averaged to be like 487 days, a year or two old. AI content was the content that AI chose to show
Mm-hmm.
or reference was much newer
Mm.
within the year. And so one of the things that becomes, it has been a big thing recently with traditional SEO as well, but is now more of a focus for AI, or needs to be, is refreshing the content that you have. So
Mm.
not everything's going to be new content. Once you get it out there, like, it's a good idea every year to 2 years, go back and refresh that content, because it's getting stale on
Yeah.
that shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. One thing that we haven't talked about yet that I think is pertinent to this conversation, and I'm interested to hear your perspective as we're thinking about, okay, we need more content. It's not like we have more time to create that content.
Right.
How do you, what are your thoughts on using AI to help you create more
Yes.
content?
Yes. It's a big question now, right? So there, first of all, AI is an incredible tool.
Mm-hmm.
I think I definitely take advantage of that. We use it for our content. We use it for our clients' content. Does Google want to, or Google, or now AI,
Mm-hmm.
want to show AI content? Google's totally fine with it.
Yeah.
They've come out and said they're totally fine with it.
Yeah.
What matters, not whether AI wrote it or somebody wrote it out, it's whether it's high quality content
Mm-hmm.
and the expertise and trustworthy and experience of the person behind it,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what they really want to tie in, is who's behind this content,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're putting author bios on everybody's blog page to tie the content to a specific author, connecting that to their bigger bio page in their website,
Mm-hmm.
and connecting those to their social media accounts. So Google, when it goes, or the search engines, when it goes through, can say, oh, this content is back. This person's a financial advisor. So yes, he's or she's qualified to write a financial piece. It's not Joe down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we can verify they're on this company's website. They've got their social media on LinkedIn. Okay, so all of that stuff. So first of all, from a search engine perspective, AI is fine. Now, take a step back from that, AI needs a human. I took it. It's common to say human in the loop,
Mm-hmm.
right? I've gotten where I write my articles using AI, but they still take me 5 hours, right?
Right.
You can't just ask AI to write an article on, we've been using tax loss harvesting, so that, and then put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it first came out, AI was really, really easy to pick up,
Mm-hmm.
because it wrote really poorly.
It was trash.
It's gotten much better, but it's still not done. And it still doesn't think of everything. Like, I was just working on an article before we got on this talk, and we finished, and I said, well, what about this? We didn't talk. Oh yeah, great idea. And it adds it. And I ended up going back for 3 things that wasn't included in the original article that needed to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you still have to be a knowledgeable reader.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to read and check it for omissions
Mm-hmm.
or errors. I don't see errors as often as we used to,
Mm-hmm.
but it can
Mm-hmm.
hallucinate still. And just to make sure that it's representing you and your brand and your tone and the services you actually offer.
Mm-hmm.
It takes, it's a great tool, right? And that's what it is. It's a writing tool, but it's not the writer.
Right.
You still have to author it or
Right.
direct it.
Right. I'm totally with you, Brent. I am not shy about saying I use AI to help me write my own content. I use AI to help me write content for my clients, but I don't feel like it actually saves me time. I still spend a significant number of hours on a single article or an email newsletter. Like you said, I was just writing my email newsletter right before we hopped on, and I was using AI to help me. It still took me 3 hours to write that email newsletter. And I was writing an article for a client who is a self-directed IRA administrator. And I was writing an article about how do the tax law changes in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act affect self-directed investors who are holding real estate in their self-directed IRAs. I've been writing for this client since 2021. So I have built up quite the knowledge about self-directed IRAs.
Right.
And I am so glad that I have that knowledge, because AI was helping me write this article about, all these great tax benefits for real estate investors who operate their real estate properties as a business and things like that. And I had to correct the AI and go back and say, but does this really affect self-directed IRA investors? Because they're holding their properties in a self-directed IRA, and that's who's paying the taxes on these properties, not a business or whatever. And so it had to keep saying like, oh, you're so right, I'm so sorry, this is totally does not apply to them, or whatever it might be. And I just think, if you don't have that knowledge to question the AI, it will tell you very confidently the wrong
Yes. Oh,
information.
for sure. Well, good for you to know that. Yeah. So even if an advisor is working with you or with us and we send them content, they can't, they need to check it still. They're going to be held responsible for it. So we try to catch as much as we can.
Right.
We have a small team, and finance is a big part of I have the knowledge base, and teams really developing that knowledge base, but they're the expertise. They're experts. So fortunately you knew that, but if it had been the first article you've written for that client, it's something that they would have had to check.
Yeah.
And so you do need to check. I know my first experience with hallucinations, I have a client that specializes in ESG or now value-based or sustainable. And so one of the easy terms to rank for is recommended books, right? Like let's write a list of 10 books that'll bring people that are interested to your site. It's kind of top of the funnel stuff. So I just went to chat and said, what are the 10 best books on impact investing? And they gave me a great list, authors, publishing dates. Only 4 of them existed.
Oh, you're kidding.
It was crazy. So yeah. And you do have to learn how to work with AI, right? Like you just can't go and say it. It takes practice. It takes time to get better. Now for you, it seems like you must be a bit of a fast writer. It does save me time. I love writing, but I'm very, very slow. So it'll take me 8 hours to write a blog post. Now I can do it in 4, maybe 5. So it saves me a few hours.
I love that. But that's still 4 to 5 hours. It's not like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we've got content up.
Yeah. No, you have to be the human in the loop still.
Yeah. I love that phrase. I'm going to use that. Well, Brent, we've been talking for a long time. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you think would be pertinent to this conversation before we wrap it up?
There are a couple things. So if we can go, reviews are super important with AI. Yeah. Like, so moving away from the content part, but reviews are really, really important. FAQs are a good part of your content. If you have a service page or a article, put some FAQs on the bottom. Those are common. We didn't talk about AEO versus GEO.
Oh.
So I first saw it come out as AEO. And so as I was exploring and getting for the financial industry, and so it kind of was going that way. And I started referring to AEO, and all the articles in the financial industry were getting written as AEO. And as I've gotten into it more, and my first response was, no, it's just SEO. It's a different SEO. I'm not using AEO. I'm not using GEO. It's SEO. But then I reluctantly thought, okay, well, everybody's calling it AEO in finance. We'll call it AEO and fine, whatever. However, as I get into it more, it's different. There's a distinct difference. So AEO is coming up with the answer. Your content is going to appear. Chat is going to use you as a source when it answers. GEO is recommending you, is showing you in a list or displaying you. So there's some subtle differences to how you do those, and we're still working on those. But there are differences in and I think the right ways. I now refer to AI search being made up of AEO and GEO.
Interesting.
Yeah. So GEO is a tougher one. GEO focuses on building credibility, so search engines will recommend you. AEO is providing information for them to provide the answer.
So would that influence recommendations that you would make to advisors, in order to be answer engine optimized? We need this kind of content. In order to be generative engine optimized, we need to build this kind of authority.
Yes, absolutely. So there's been a little bit some overlap, right? Like you need to create the content to become a topical authority, whether they're going to recommend you as the best financial advisors for doctors, or they want to take your content and answer a question on, retirement planning for doctors. However, so there's a lot of that overlaps. However, where if you've heard anything about SEO, one of the things you've probably heard is that backlinks are really important. Other sites linking to your content. Okay, that was kind of how you built authority with SEO. With AI, it's different. You don't need the link, but you do need to appear on trustworthy sites around the internet. So where in the past, if you had a interview and appeared on Wall Street Journal's digital platform, if they linked out to you, it would be of real value to your SEO. However, if they just mentioned you, it's good PR, but it wouldn't help your SEO. Now, if they mention you for AI, it's just as good as a link used to be. So, but AI is going to visit your site, but they want to see you on other high authority sites and around the internet. So if you're really serious, like guest post, go on podcasts, open yourself to get interviews from news or media companies. Yeah, all of that stuff. Get out there and get. Now they're referring to those as citations. Be cited somewhere else other than just your own site.
Well, we already mentioned we're going to have you back here within 6 months to talk about all the updates. I think sooner than that, we can dive into these topics in a lot more depth as well.
Anytime. I'm learning new stuff every day, Hillary.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I love to talk about it. It helps to process it. And anytime I'd be happy to come back.
Well, where's the best place that people can find you, Brent, if they want to follow you and get in touch with you?
Yeah. So advisorrankings.io is our company. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. I check it every day. Please feel free to connect with me. If you have questions, feel free to reach out either formally or informally. I'm happy to help.
Well, this was such a fantastic conversation, Brent. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today.
Thank you, Hillary. It was fun.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.